Articles are in this case relating to Prince Harry between 2001 and 2013, and yet he was only asked about two of them. The first that he was asked about was related to...
The courtroom was meant to be a place of gravitas, a stage where truth stands tall and accountability sharpens its teeth. Instead, it became something closer to a theatre of the absurd, where confidence strutted in wearing borrowed authority and promptly tripped over its own shoelaces. Prince Harry arrived that day carrying the posture of a man who believed the moment belonged to him, but moments have a way of turning when arrogance outpaces preparation. What unfolded was not a dramatic legal showdown, but a slow, public unraveling that revealed far more about the man than the case itself ever could. And if you're watching Royal Scope, do remember to like, share, and subscribe, because this was one of those moments that will be replayed for years. The turning point did not come from a hostile cross-examination or a devastating piece of evidence. It came before Harry even began giving evidence, delivered softly by his own barrister, David Sherborne, in the form of a question so simple it should have required no thought at all. How would the Duke of Sussex like to be addressed in court? His Royal Highness, or something else? Harry leaned into the moment with what he likely believed was easy charm, replying casually, "Same as last time." It was meant to sound relaxed, perhaps even lightly amusing, a signal that he was comfortable here, seasoned, in control. Instead, it was the opening note of a symphony of embarrassment. Sherborne followed up, gently but firmly, asking how Harry had been addressed on the previous occasion. And then came the pause. Not the thoughtful pause of someone choosing their words, but the hollow silence of a mind suddenly, catastrophically blank. Harry froze. Seconds stretched. The air thickened. Finally, he admitted, "I can't remember." What followed was not polite titters or restrained smiles, but real laughter. The kind that ripples uncontrollably through a room when everyone present realizes, at the exact same moment, that something has gone terribly wrong. Sherborne hastily clarified that Harry had previously been addressed simply as Prince Harry, but by then the damage was done. The contrast was brutal. Here was a man who insists he possesses razor-sharp recall of alleged events stretching back to 2005, yet he could not remember what he was called in court the last time he testified. It was not merely ironic, it was devastating. The credibility gap yawned wide enough to swallow the entire case. You could almost hear the collective recalibration as observers reassessed everything that had come before. Then came the judge's intervention, quiet but lethal in its simplicity. Unimpressed and entirely uninterested in indulging royal theatrics, he dropped any suggestion of His Royal Highness altogether. No discussion. No ceremony. Her Royal Highness was gone. Full stop. Reduced to Prince Harry, stripped of the grandeur he both rejects and desperately clings to, depending on which version of himself he is presenting that day. It was a moment heavy with symbolism, the kind that lingers long after the words themselves fade. This is, after all, the same man who once tried to trademark Sussex Royal, eager to monetize royal status while loudly proclaiming his desire to distance himself from it. Harry knows he cannot openly demand to be addressed as Her Royal Highness, so instead he plays dumb, hoping confusion will do the work entitlement cannot. He could have chosen one title, any title, and stuck to it. But he needs the world to remember that he is special, even when pretending not to care. The performance is exhausting to watch, and clearly even more exhausting to maintain. The irony deepens when one considers that Harry has had an entire year to prepare for this hearing. A year to rehearse testimony, anticipate questions, and ensure he could answer even the most basic procedural details. Yet the very first question posed by his own lawyer was met with failure. It invites an uncomfortable question. What exactly has he been doing all this time? Polishing grievances, rehearsing narratives of victimhood, perhaps perfecting anecdotes designed for sympathetic audiences rather than hostile scrutiny. Whatever the preparation was, it was not legal readiness. Whether the exchange was an unintentional trap or a very simple one hardly matters. What matters is what it exposed. Harry's memory is selective, emotional, and unreliable. He remembers what supports his feelings and forgets what undermines them. If he cannot recall a straightforward detail from a recent courtroom appearance, why should anyone trust his recollection of complex events from decades ago, filtered through resentment, trauma, and time? Memory, like truth, does not bend kindly to convenience. Harry will undoubtedly have felt the sting of being laughed at. He does not tolerate mockery unless he is the one delivering it. His memoir, Spare, is littered with cruel remarks about the appearances and character of others, offered without irony or self-awareness. Yet he shows no capacity to laugh at himself. Humor requires humility, and humility has never been his strongest suit. Desperation, on the other hand, has a very distinct scent, and most people recognize it instantly when it enters a room. This lawsuit rests not on facts, but on feelings, on perceived slights, imagined injustices, and an inability to accept that not every discomfort is evidence of a conspiracy. Watching Harry flounder under oath makes painfully clear why so many believe this case has no legs. Courts deal in evidence, not emotion, and certainly not entitlement. Each stumble reinforced the impression of a man who believes his pain should be self-authenticating, his status self-justifying. As the day wore on, the spectacle took on a surreal quality. A prince who abandoned his family yet clings to their titles. A man who speaks endlessly of suffering for my wife, while refusing to relinquish the privileges of the very institution he condemns. HR dropped, credibility dented, and laughter echoing behind him like an unwanted chorus. It was not the reckoning he had imagined, but perhaps it was the one he deserved. In the end, the episode felt less like a legal proceeding and more like a cautionary tale. Confidence without competence is a dangerous thing, especially under oath. Harry entered the courtroom believing his story alone would carry him. He left having demonstrated that narrative control collapses the moment it meets scrutiny. If you found this breakdown on Royal Scope insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because when the performance ends and the applause turns to laughter, what remains is not royalty, but reality. And reality, unlike Harry's memory, does not forget.